Hello, everybody. This is Three Points Ball and Bod. This is the Irish Inter Special. Now, as you can see, I am not Big Joe Shep. My name is Jeff Pagano. I'm from harpingonrugby.net. I'm a Leinster fan. We're a Leinster and Ireland fan site. And we've got together fans from all four provinces and to talk about the InterPros from last weekend and looking ahead to next week. So joining us on the show tonight, representing Ulster, we've got Mr. Nigel Quigley. Welcome to the show, sir.
How you doing, Matt? How's it going, guys? Hi, Padraig.
How you doing? How's things?
Yeah, not too bad, man. Not too bad.
And flying the flag for Connacht, we have from the second row, we've got Pádraig Kelly. How's it going, sir?
Good. It's been a good week. Enjoying watching that game a few times since the weekend, and
I bet you did. Absolutely, no doubt about that. Well, we're going to have Jeff Neville, the loose head, joining us a bit later to talk about all things Munster. He'll be with us shortly. So why don't we kick off by talking about the match from Sunday at the Viva, if you don't mind, Michael. I know, yeah. So let's start with you, Pádraig. What did you? It was a great. I thought. I mean, of the four provinces, coming out of the blocks and after the break and all that, I thought maybe Connacht was probably had the best kind of team performance. That's what I was thinking from it. What did you take from the game?
Yeah, I really felt like everyone who played fought the whole game. It was one of those. You could really tell that every player had been itching to go back playing rugby, and they just felt like to unleash in this 80 minutes. And everything they'd worked on or talked about over the last 6, 7, 8, 3 months, whatever, how long we've been in lockdown, just seemed to happen. Like no team played perfectly over the weekend. No team had the ability to play perfectly over the weekend. There was rustiness, but I think if we see more of that from Connacht going forward, we're going to have a lot of happy Connacht fans.
Definitely. And do you think the way the schedule is working out for you with the big gap after 2 games and then a big gap, do you think that's going to hurt you, or do you think you'll need some friendlies, how do you think that's going to work out for you?
It's not ideal, to be honest. Who doesn't? Every team wants to be playing cup rugby. Everyone wants to be in semi-finals and finals. And like you look at the other 2 provinces, and to be honest, there's a bit of envy there, kind of looking at them going, "Oh, wish we were there." But that actually brings an opportunity. So last weekend, those 23 players got told, "All right, we've been training for the last 6 weeks. Show us what you got." Now the next 23 are going to go, "They did pretty well last week. Show us what you got." And anyone who doesn't play well next week is going to go into 5 weeks going, "I didn't play well last time I was on the pitch. I didn't really give what I could have given. I couldn't give all what I could have given." And that puts them at disadvantage when the new season starts, because you've had 2 competitive games, you had 2 opportunities to show, you had 1 opportunity to show what you've got, and if you haven't played as good as the next person in your position, you're more than likely not starting come to start of the next season.
And although it was a good team effort and they played well together, which players stood out for you in green on Sunday?
I think the standouts for me were, like, I'll start in the pack and I'll work my way out. Ulton Delan had a great game. It was lovely seeing Butler back at 7, his natural position. Boyle, I think, was dominant in some of his tackles. I think Hef was possibly the best hooker playing out of the 4 provinces this weekend, but I'll leave that open to debate. I think Marmion had a superb game. Carty showed like he was back to his old self, and I think you can't really talk about that game without talking about Bundy. He just looked like a man on fire and who'd been literally caged for the last while and was just released because he brought physicality, he brought skill, and he brought leadership, and it was great to see.
And
he took a great try. Yeah,
I think Ian Madigan knows all about that. He had a good introduction back to Interpro rugby for him. Just before I go to you, Nigel, I just want to, just for Joe, I have to. Three Blokes, a Ball and Bod supports local businesses through COVID and beyond, and there's a big shout out to companies like CoffeeDog.ie, K-Naco Biltong, and Rugby Academy Ireland. Now, on to you, Nigel. What did you make of it? I mean, it wasn't all bad for Ulster.
Not all bad. I think very slow out of the stops, which Connacht weren't. I think there was a lack of cohesion, a lack of intensity. I think I've got to agree a bit with Dan McFarland in his post-match interview when he said, to be honest, I think that game was partly lost on Saturday night when they watched Glasgow defeated and realised nothing hung on the game, because he hadn't seen that in training. And second half was better. Definitely the replacements improved the game, I thought. And I mean front row replacements. I mean, even in the back line. It was said that John Cooney was hooked off at half time. He wasn't. That's been confirmed. They wanted to give Ian Madigan a half of rugby to get in. I thought Cooney was okay. Not as usual delivery from the base of the scrum. I thought Albie Mathewson showed well when he came on. The guy has quality. Of the starting 15, our best players, Stu McCluskey, to be honest. I mean, he had the most carries of anybody in the Pro 14 at the weekend, and I think he had a little support on occasions on his shoulder, which he normally has in an Ulster shirt. There might have been a try scored, but he was kind of on his own, and you could criticise him for that. But whenever a player has the ball and they're breaking tackles and they're going forward, when do they stop? They keep going. It's up to the support players to come with them, I believe. They also butchered a couple of tries on the line. Great defence by Connacht, I have to say, but you got to ask questions when 2 tries are held up. Are you going to the line correctly? One you'll forgive. So I suppose they butchered enough chances to still be in that game and possibly win it. I think the result speaks true. The better team definitely won. Ulster were just not on fire on Saturday. As I say, slight improvement. Lineouts were a disaster. Can't blame it completely on the hooker. I think some of the lineout timing of the jumpers were way off. A couple of overthrows, yeah, but if you're not getting a good set piece, you're not giving your backs anything to feed from. They're fighting for scraps, and they were doing that, especially in the first half. Can't argue with the result at all. Fair result. Best team won. A lot for Ulster to do, and at least we have a game this weekend, which was starting to look possibly in doubt for the COVID outbreak, but a lot to work on. I think the only benefit we have for this weekend is it will give the guys more game time. Obviously, we're not going to be able to bring the academy players by the looks of it, so he's got to work with his senior squad. I think you'll see a lot of changes, and he's just going to want to see a bit more cohesion and a bit more intensity. In defence, I'm not going to name names, but one of our back three got himself out of position a few times and made bad calls defensively, I think. Allowed one try to be scored by coming in too quick and committing himself too early. But he hasn't played a lot of rugby in a season and a half. Jacob at 15, he was okay. I don't think he did much wrong. But again, he was at the back of the line fighting for scraps in the first half, wasn't he? And so it's hard to shine. Be interesting to see what happens. I can't complain. It wasn't all bad, as you say. Overall, it wasn't a good performance, and we were playing up against a very good Connacht side. I think Connacht were the team of the weekend. Their intensity levels, their defence, their attack speed, their support play was on the money for me. And we were still in the game, so we did some things right, obviously, but just there were things that let us down, I think, throughout the game. And they let us down throughout the game in some of the backline moves and the cohesion and speed, and in the pack, and we weren't really good in the set piece. We weren't that great in the list, but that did improve in the second half, in fairness.
Yeah, and what would you say to were there players that you are maybe missing? One thing I've noticed in the weekend, it was a bad week. I mean, Pádraig mentioned Ultan Dillán's performance, but it was a bad weekend overall for Locks, pretty much. Leinster had already missed James Ryan. You had what happened to Snyman, and then you had the lad Thornbury going down in the second half, and you were missing Ian Henderson. Was Ian Henderson a big loss for you?
Ian Henderson's always going to be a loss to the team. I don't think, but to be honest, that operation was a delayed one. That was supposed to happen earlier in the year. COVID actually delayed that, so that's not a shock to anybody. We knew that was what happened. But we had Sam Carter, who I've always liked the look of. I think he's a very underrated player for Ulster. I think his carries, his strength, his lineouts are usually really good, but the ball's got to get to him, and he's got to be lifted. Treadwell, Alan O'Connor went off with a HIA. We don't know how he is. Treadwell, preferably for me, with what we've got, I would have went with Carter and Treadwell. I think he'd probably do that this coming weekend, but we may not have Alan O'Connor anyway. Alan O'Connor's a great workhorse, though. I mean, he does all the dirty stuff well. He mucks in, he gets stuck in.
Yeah.
But Treadwell brings a different threat. He's very quick. for a second row. He's a great ball carrier. I'd like to see those two start. I do think we will see different combinations this weekend. At the back row, I think we lost something when Kutsea went off. We're always going to, although one of our tries came from Timoney from number 8, and that was well taken by him. But the go forward ball, and he did offer a go forward ball, and we kind of lost that a bit when he went off. We don't really have another player with his impact. The rest of the back row were okay, but nobody's shone. I mean, certainly the Shane in the game were in a green shirt more so than a white shirt last weekend. There's no doubt about that. When you look at players, yeah, there were a few players that shone. Front row, Marty's looking a bit rotund.
Yes, a couple of COVID pounds, I think we might say.
Yeah.
I
shot Summers doing well, but he's always been a big lad. In fairness, he's never been slim. I think people forget that. I remember when he was at Leinster and when he was at Wasp, he was that size. He did trim down a bit when he came to Ulster at first, but he's kind of gone back to his, frankly, what we've seen him more often than not. So I think the criticism there is maybe a little, he's not fit, he's not this. Marty Moore brings a lot to a game. He's a good player. He is a good player. But yes, certainly compared to everybody else on the pitch, he did look rotund.
Yeah, we got some comments coming in. We've got Ian Gilbert saying, "Is there any truth in the rumor that Marty Moore dropped an O from his surname?" That's it. That's original play in his name there. Mark Hunter says tackling shouldn't be as optional as it was in the first half against Connacht.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Pádraig, just going back to Connacht there. I mean, you lost Thornbury in the second half, and then he looks out for HIA. That looked kind of nasty. But I see you've Quinn Rue coming back around the same time. How's the squad looking up in terms of injuries?
We're actually looking pretty decent in terms of injuries. Gavin Thornbury's on return to play protocols. He'll take the time he needs. Buckley's injured, but these are all guys that weren't playing next week anyway. And we have 5 weeks to recover afterwards. We were literally using this 2 block games, especially the second Scarlets one. We had nothing to play for apart from raining on everyone's parades if we could. And I think Munster really going to have that, like a bunch of former Munster players kind of going, we could really ruin Munster's hopes of getting into a Pro 14 semi-final if we beat them and don't let them win, let them get a bonus point. They need that bonus point, and they need Scarlets not to do that.
Can I interrupt you there, Pádraig? Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Munster can only draw with Edinburgh on points, but they can't catch them on wins. I think Edinburgh are already through.
Edinburgh are top. Scarlets are the issue for Munster.
Yeah, Munster.
Right. Oh, yes, Scarlet. Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Munster's guard behind them. And speaking of Munster, I understand in my ear that we have Mr. Jeff Neville ready to come in, and there he is. You just say his name, and he appears. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hi, folks. How are you getting on? Thanks for having me.
Putting us all to shame because he's the guy after joining us after training. The 3 of us were going to get ready and pretend we've all been training and sit down all exhausted and stuff. But fair play to you. Did you have a good workout tonight? Yeah.
Oh well, I was coaching. I wasn't training myself, so it was grand. Yeah, it was fine. I'll take the plaudits. That's all right.
There you go. Well, welcome to the show, sir. We've just been talking about Connacht v Ulster from the weekend, so I suppose yourself and myself should get cracking on the match from Saturday night. What did you make of it yourself?
Oh, what a game! I mean, what a way to kick it. I know you wouldn't even think that they had gone how many months without a game. Like, it was absolutely just brilliant. Like, it was almost like a game you'd expect between Leinster and Munster in a semi-final or maybe a Christmas period. It was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, absolutely fantastic to see. A kick of a ball in the game. And if you go back to the first games that kicked off, and be it Super Rugby or be it in the Premiership or whatever, they were all, the first games were actually kind of a bit stodgy, a bit stop-start, or, they didn't really kick off. But this it seemed like they hadn't stopped playing for 5 months. So, yeah, don't get me wrong, you'd prefer a win, wouldn't you? But at the end of the day, it was an excellent game.
Oh yeah, it was definitely. I mean, it was just the attitude. I mean, like from the four of us, we were just happy to see rugby back, full stop, in any way, shape, or form. But I mean, for them, they wanted to get out on the pitch and just start playing and getting out there. But even then, they were able to raise it the level of intensity that was needed for those matchups. And it just didn't disappoint from the start. I mean, it was great. I mean, seeing what Munster were trying to do, trying to get in Leinster's faces, stopping us from, we Leinster like to get into routines, pass, offload, crash ball, and all this kind of stuff. But you were getting in our faces. So CJ Stander, especially, disrupting what we wanted to do. It was just, you were just getting into that battle straight away. And after just 10, 15 minutes gone, you realize, oh God, I'm analyzing again. It's like I'm not watching old matches from like 20 years ago anymore. It's like this is actually happening now, and it's great. It was great to see.
With in terms of the breakdown, though, like I mean, I know Farrell got the official man of the match, but CJ was mine all day. Like, and the reason I would pick CJ is not just because of, let's say, the 5 turnovers, even though that is pretty good going. It's just because if you think of where Leinster would have been without his interventions, I think they would have maybe won by a bit more. He just put paid to an awful lot, and even that little battle between him and Sexton was something to watch as well. That was just another little subplot in what was a game of just massive clashes, I suppose. But no, I thought CJ was unbelievable. The Munster breakdown overall on both sides of the ball, on theirs and on Leinster's ball, like you said, they just didn't let them get into the game at all. I think the breakdown of the weekend, though, probably came, and I think the boys will agree, the breakdown of the weekend was probably Bundy Aki there. He lost the shoulder battle, I think it was to Jordy Murphy, and he still took out 2 fellas, so that was probably the breakdown of the weekend for me, now being honest. But Porrick's probably pleased with that one.
The physicality he brought all weekend was just fun to watch. I've just never seen someone who just brought so much strength to everything they did. It was just fun. Just fun to watch games that we actually care about. As much as Super Rugby was nice to watch in AU and the Premiership, it's when you have some skin in the game, the games are more enjoyable to watch, and there's just something more to them.
Yeah, Aki's try as well, like just that power. He didn't care. He was just like, I'm 5 meters away. I'm just going over the try line there.
And I'm picking my man as well, who I'm going to run at.
That was a very clever try, though, because what he did was, if you noticed, he actually went to the other side of the scrum, and Stu McCluskey followed him to that side of the scrum, and then just before the ball went in, he just wandered over to the other side. McCluskey didn't spot him.
He created the mismatch.
Very clever, because McCluskey's defense is good, and he's a big lad too. I mean, he's a 17 stone, 6'4". And what Bundy did was very clever, because he went, I'm going this side. And then in the melee of the ball going in and people moving around, he slipped over to the other side of the scrum. At the other side. So he was up against Ian Madigan, Mathewson, Albie Mathewson. I mean, it was just, here we go, we're through. And he ran through them. So it was very clever what he did. And I was going, at the end of it, I did think, oh, you clever person, you know.
He doesn't get enough credit for that type of stuff.
I mean, Ian Madigan's not one to shy away from a tackle, but no one in their right mind is going to say, right, Ian, you take Bundy Aki there, and we'll sort everyone else out. That was really well crafted.
Looking at the let's say between Aki and McCluskey, looking at Henshaw, Ringrose, Farr, like how. Like that was probably the main takeaway I took. Like how good the games were, obviously. But we have 5 centres. You could actually add in obviously Scanlon. I'm a big fan of Scanlon. You don't get to be the youngest player to earn 100 caps without being very, very good. But you have 5-6 centre partnerships, or 5-6 different combinations, I suppose you could say, that could start an international game tomorrow. And I especially watching Henshaw, and Henshaw's chip through for Ringrose, you combat that with Aki's 5 metre try, what he did. You look at Chris Farrell, his feet going into contact's unbelievable, unbelievable. And then you look at,
And his passing game is vastly underrated as well.
Oh, massively! Like such a skillful player. Like, but you look at all these combinations. I mean, Farrell could probably play 12 or 13. Henshaw can. Aki can. Ringrose, he's probably more of a 13. Let's be honest. But like in a pinch, he definitely has the skill set to go in 12. But like just seeing like the number of world class centres we have playing at the moment, like absolutely unbelievable.
Absolutely agree. And just to put on the Leinster goggles just for a second, I know the host and everything's supposed to be neutral, but on the subject of centres, I thought one of Leinster's key things from the Saturday was, you talk about combinations. It was the actual combination of Henshaw and Ringrose, the way they work together. I mean, they played a lot. They've been playing a lot together. They're obviously trying to play them together, maybe to get them to the sort of Bod and Darcy kind of levels, getting used to play together. But I thought they worked really well as a team together on the day as well. That was probably one of the biggest things that helped Leinster. That little chip through and just him ducking around. I wasn't expecting that at all from them.
That's a brilliant point, actually, because I thought in Ulster's team, we had young Hume playing, who again hasn't started many games, and he's a fantastic young player. It didn't click.
Yeah,
Sunday,
it
didn't really click. He seemed to be out of the game. I mean, I've watched that lad. That lad is a real prospect, believe me. But that combination just didn't seem to click on Sunday. Whereas if you had Luke Marshall in there, they've played together for years, so they just know each other inside out. It probably would have been a bit better, but you've got to bring new players in. So that's a very, very good point about the centre partner. And Farrell, Farrell was a bit. I thought he was fantastic on Saturday. You say CJ. I mean, I'm a forward by trade as well, but you've got to admire what these do too. Come on, they're not bad.
I really did enjoy the fact that Henshaw brought more subtlety to his game than we've been seeing to him in an Irish jersey, especially those kicks, passes, like the 20-meter pass across the pitch, just start up a new attack. We're not seeing that in an Irish jersey, and it's great to see it come through now and see it more.
You expect to cross fire every time.
Is that because he has the freedom to do that in a blue shirt?
Well, he had the freedom to do it in this green shirt anyway. So,
of all the centres, I felt very sorry for Scannell, because with all the talk of De Allende coming in, and Scannell starts on the bench, you're thinking, okay, he gets off the bench here, he's going to get a chance to show what he can bring. But suddenly, he's thrown into the back row, and like he'll be applauded for that and for what he did. Like when you think about how Munster finished up. Like, kick of a ball in it, and they had, Scannell out of position, and eight backs, I should say, on the pitch. Like, he'll get applauded for what he did, but what he did isn't what he wanted to set out to do, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I felt real sorry for him, just because I think he's absolutely class. He's a brilliant kicking option to have as well. To have a left-footed kicker at 12, a right-footed kicker at 10 gives you that kind of option, but. He didn't get that option. I think he'll get time against Connacht, I reckon. But it was just a pity for him kind of to start on the bench but not get a chance to highlight his skill set either.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of
Tammy Arnold, will be a fun battle next weekend.
Yeah, that'll be good, won't it?
Definitely. And speaking of having players out of position, Jeff, you had a terrible time with injuries in that match from the early stages. There's losing two players in the first 10 minutes, two key ball carriers and line-out jumpers, and that was just that did really impact the match, didn't it? Especially towards the end.
Towards the end, it did. I think if you look at it from the start, like losing Snyman was a pity because, like, let's face it, like, it doesn't matter who you support, you want to see him on the ball, you want to see him playing. But like, it was amazing that a lot of the talk was about Snyman. Not many people were mentioning Kilcoyne. Like, he's brilliant. He's a brilliant scrummager and he's excellent in the loose. Like, he was a big loss as well. But we lost them at 7 minutes. We scored a try at 12, and it was a big try. And in terms of what I mean by saying a big try, I think it was a big try in terms of the context of what had just happened. You to lose a loose head and a second row at 7 minutes in, like, that upsets your whole game. And I know losing Klein later on, like, upset everything. But to lose two key figures like that to go up, and it was a very well worked try they had scored, and it took patience and it took a lot of build up. But to have that discipline to do constantly throughout the game. And I think even if you look at Munster's breakdown later on in the game as well, especially in the closing maybe 10 minutes, like, it was a lightning breakdown. And you know, it was tough to lose 2 early on and then lose Clyne as well. But I wouldn't necessarily say the breakdown or the pace or the intensity of the game suffered as a result, if that's fair to say.
I'd say you lost cohesion in what you're trying to do, because your game plan kind of goes out the window when you lose 2 such big ball carriers. Because like Munster's, for what a better term, biggest failing last season was the lack of oomph after Kilcoyne and Sander in the pack. Then when you lose the oomph you bring in and the oomph you already had in the first 7 minutes, that puts you on the back foot already.
Yeah, but like as well, Kilcoyne wasn't meant to start that game either. So I mean, you have
Cronin.
You have Cronin who's meant to start. Then Kilcoyne's on the bench, or Kilcoyne's starting, and Lockman's on the bench, and then suddenly Lockman goes from, you know, not even involved to in the space of an hour. Do you know? Yeah, he's suddenly playing the full game. So I mean, I think when you look at what Jeremy Lockman did in the game, he had an excellent game for a guy who an hour before it wasn't even in the 23. In terms of cohesion, that's going to happen, especially when you have 7 forwards for I don't know how long, you know. And I know Leinster had Deegan on the wing mixing in and out as well, but I think having Deegan on the wing is a lot different to having Scannell in the back row. Like Deegan could play 15 if he wanted. He has that, you know, he's so good. Like, but I think considering what had happened early on in the game, like Munster reacted so well to get a try, and even throughout the game, that just I really don't think they let him affect them at all. They were just like, right, we'll do what needs to be done when it has to be done, and that was it. Like, you know. Yeah.
And what did you guys think of the refereeing? There's a lot of emphasis on how the breakdown was going to be interpreted, and how, like, we'll start with you, Nigel. How did you think the Frank Murphy like handled the day?
Well, actually, as I recall, the referee, the penalty count in that game wasn't terribly high.
Yeah. So
So
compared to the Premiership and Super Rugby, definitely.
You know, it was the same refereeing of the breakdowns we're finding in our league, and maybe it's because the 2 teams just have had that extra time to look at it. But I think that the Super Rugby first weekend we saw tons of penalties, but it decreased over the weeks, and we saw the same in the Premiership. But because funny, I think actually the commentary team for Premier mentioned that in the second half. It said how low the penalty count had been. So obviously they'd worked on that, and I thought I had no complaints about the refereeing of that game on Sunday at all. I mean, I'm sure there'll be an Ulster fan somewhere saying, "Oh, the ref lost that game," but, you know, they'll find a reason for a loss anywhere at any time. You know, I mean. No, I had no issues with him at all. I thought he refereed the game very well, to be honest. Overall, I mean, if a referee makes a blooper, you remember it, don't you? I don't remember any, so he didn't. Did
you notice anything different about, you know, the penalties that were called? Pádraig, maybe did you see any kind of differences? They were looking at the breakdown, or things that were called or hadn't been called. No, I didn't notice that much either.
I like Frank as a ref. To be perfectly honest, I think he's a good communicator. I personally, from what I've seen in other leagues, I do think he left a bit more fight at the breakdown than other refs would have. But I think he did that for both teams. Like, that was just he left a bit more time for players on the ball and let them have to almost survive a clear out, which they shouldn't really have to do at the moment. But I think he did that across the board, you know, so you can't really complain. And Connacht weren't at the pitch at the game. Like, we weren't at his read of the game, because it was our penalties that let Ulster back into the game. Like, we'd scored 2 tries, they'd scored 4 penalties. And even though we were playing almost better, like, handling in rugby, Ulster were just there because of us just as much as what they were doing. And it was just really frustrating to watch. I think that is more on how we played, not how Frank reffed the match.
Yeah, that's what my biggest worry going into the weekend was that it'd be dominated by way too many penalties like we've seen in the other games. But I do think there was a conscious effort to keep an even keel around the breakdown and let them play as much as they could.
Yeah, we've got George this weekend, so that should be interesting.
Isn't he a favourite of Ulster fans? He's a big favourite of Ulster fans, if I remember correctly.
Wasn't he? Oh, we love him.
Just on Pádraig's point there, and I really agree with it, this idea of having to survive the breakdown as a term. I think if you get in over the ball in a good position, like, I think there's no need for a referee to wait for, you know, 2-3 blows to come in. Just needless on a player. Like, if you're in a good strong jackal, you're going to be taking that ball, just blow it. Like, you know, there is actually no need for this idea of, you know, oh, we need to let two players have a go at clearing you out first before we know you're on the ball. And once you're on it and you're looking to play it, you're on it and you're looking to play it.
And if it's CJ Sander, you can just blow the penalty before he even gets there. You know,
like you know, if he's even looking at the ruck, just blow it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there you go. So
can I ask you a question, Jeff? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff.
Which Jeff? Me or him?
Munster Jeff.
Munster Jeff. Okay, off you go.
Given how close things are in Munster's conference, the kick at the end, kicking it out at the end, what was it?
He was dead right to it. It's not, you know, people will say like, oh, why didn't you play for a win, or why didn't you play for whatever? Like, I mean, a minute before that, we're up attacking Leinster, they turn over, and you know, they boot it down the pitch. You've 8 backs in the pitch. You don't even have a full line out for I don't know how long of the game. Like, we were reverted to 4-man lineouts at stages, like, you know, and we won the ball back, a losing bonus point there. Again, like I say, you'd prefer the win, but it's not PlayStation. You know, you can't go slinging 30-yard passes hoping it comes off. And I mean, if Leinster turn over and get a try, we get nothing, you know. And like Pádraig said earlier in the show, like, we're against Llanelli now, like Edinburgh through, we're looking at Scarlets for a knockout spot. Like, we're still in the hunt for a knockout spot now by kicking that out and taking the point. And are you, like, let's be honest, with the game in red against a team like Leinster, are you going to keep the ball in play for, let's say, 4 minutes against their defence to work 60 metres to get a try? Like, you might, don't get me wrong, you might, but like, the chances are so slim, you know. So I think taking the point, absolutely. It's like, it's hard. Like, it might be hard for some fans to stomach, but like, it was 100% the right call in my eyes.
Yeah, it's just when I was watching the game, when you're into the game and you're into the intensity of the game, it didn't make sense to me just in that moment, because I'm thinking the way we've been giving up penalties, all it would take would be 2 penalties, and then all of a sudden you're in our half, and that was very, very possible that you could have done that and then got a drop goal. But then, you know, because you'd forgotten about the way the forwards were knackered, the way
there's so many.
It could have gone the other way. There's so many variables. Yeah, definitely. It was the right call, and I'm not just saying that because of the result. It was it definitely did seem like the right call.
But that's also an Irish thing of loving a championship. We love a winner and a loser. We kind of forget about how league tables work at times. We like we like that one-off match. You can win that match. You kind of, the big picture gets lost because we're so used to championship. Yeah, the championship formats rule.
Absolutely, and I think we were so, or not we maybe, but like a lot of people were so, oh, rugby's back, and these are kind of the one-off games or whatever we're having to finish the season. Like, there's still a season to play for. Therefore, like, yeah, you can say, oh, geez, we didn't beat Leinster in that one-off game. It's not a one-off game. Like, it's a season game that, like you said, Pádraig, you know, a point is ideal. Like, it's perfect, you know. So, I think absolutely the right call. You know, it's not PlayStation. You know.
Definitely not.
Hang on.
Okay, well, listen, moving on. Listen, let's start looking at the matches that's coming weekend. Let's start looking at the matches coming up this weekend. We'll start on Saturday. Why don't we, Nigel, talk about what's going to happen on Saturday? So officially, it's a home game for Ulster, but it's 2 more InterPros down the Aviva. How do you think Ulster are going to be setting up going into it?
I think they'll make quite a few changes this weekend. He's going to rotate a squad because we've got 2 players who may or may not come back, in Alan O'Connor and Alex Hume. We don't have Luke Marshall available this weekend either. So he's got to look at his centre options. So if Hume's not available, he may bring Panes into centre, or he may bring Curtis into centre. And I'd actually like him to try Curtis, because he looked exciting last season, but he just kept picking up knocks, didn't he? You know, he just couldn't get a good run together. But he's a very Luke Marshall type player, very strong, powerful lad, very quick, low centre of gravity. He goes through people, but we'll see. I think he'll make changes. The result's not going to be important to them this weekend because they can't risk serious injury. We've lost a handful of players. Chances are we won't have our academy available even for the semi-final, because they're probably going to have to 14-day isolation. So he's really got a senior squad, and that's it. So we've got maybe a couple of guys out. We obviously had the 3-4 guys out before the game. He's not going to want to risk any serious injuries to senior players. So I think he'll rotate the squad quite a bit, have a bit of a mix of seniors and squad players, and probably the same on the bench, or he may put senior players on the bench to come on. He's going to be looking for more cohesion, a bit more intensity, I would imagine, certainly from all the players. Certainly, he's going to want to see the line function. But I think we probably will have Rob Herring available this week. Because obviously that change happened right before the game, and the lad didn't cope with it well, and the line out, the jumpers didn't cope with it well. Back line, he would probably make a few changes. I was kind of hoping we'd see the likes of maybe Aaron Sexton come in and come off the bench, but that's not going to happen now, I wouldn't think. So it'll be pretty much from the 41-man squad. He's going to look for an improvement because we're building the week after, building to this weekend. You know, this is effectively a dead rubber game. Neither team benefit anyway from winning or losing this game. You know, a bit of pride for Leinster maybe, you know, for the winning record. But honestly, I don't see that really under threat this weekend, because I think Ulster are going to be just looking for stable, faster, better handling, better defensive decisions, better set pieces, and just a little more dynamism in the attack, which we're used to with Ulster as well. We didn't see that last week very well. So that's what I think he'd be looking for, the result secondary.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be from Leinster's side of things. I think it could be similar to what happened on Saturday. I think we're going to probably, we'll make some changes. Leinster definitely want to look at our line out as well. We had a good few line out issues. The stats, line out stats annoy me, because they talk about if you mess up your line out and still get possession, they give you that line out. And it's just like, no, that really bugs me, because that doesn't tell you what happened. There's just
on Leinster's line out, you lost a line out to O'Mahony, and that was the line out that Henshaw kicked for Ringrose. Yeah, so exactly. Like, I wouldn't.
As he came down.
If that's an issue, man, I'd love to have it.
Exactly, but he ran into Vanderfleur, who just nicked it back off him. That was a mad one. But yeah, so they want to look at that. But I think Ulster will want to definitely come out for the first 20 minutes and make a statement after last Sunday. So I think we're going to find ourselves in the game from the early stages, and then where it goes from there, we'll just see. Like you say, both teams are looking to the following week to be ready for a semi-final, whatever. So, like you say, the result maybe not matter as much, but then again, of course, when the players are out there on the pitch going at us, they'll be the game, and they'll want to get the result. So we'll just.
I remember the game last season, Jeff, that was played in Dublin. Funny enough, I actually thought, okay, it wasn't a day for defence coaches. That's a definite. But when both teams threw the kids out in the RDS. Most entertaining games of rugby I watched all season, because it was just full tilt rugby, kids trying to impress, wasn't it?
Is that the one where also got like 5 tries in the last 10 minutes, and was that a Christmas?
Well, not quite 5 tries a lot. The game was 10 minutes longer, you might have lost it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it was a superbly entertaining game. I was blown away by the entertainment of that game, and I was kind of hoping we'd see something similar this weekend to get the squad. They'll do it within their senior squads, but I think we will see rotation.
I think though you still will see some of that, because like the internationals are coming up soon as well, and you'll have guys knocking on. Like, yeah, I know the result won't matter what happens playoff wise, but you still have guys who are playing for an international position and a position to play in that semi-final, or in Europe as well. So
that's true. They're playing for future games. That's true. Yeah.
You're talking about McCluskey there. If McCluskey doesn't get a packed performance, actually let him show what he can do properly. Like his team can write him out of an Irish jersey before he has a chance to get his hands on the ball. So guys also need a performance, not before anything else. Win, lose, or draw, they need people to step up their game, because Dan McFarlane's right. That wasn't good enough last week. Like, if they want to be serious contenders in anything, they can't come back into competitive rugby and be 3 or 4 gears behind what everyone else is doing.
Very true.
Definitely. Okay, we just had some comments here. We're going to have a look at them first. Let's see. Jared Williamson says Ireland are lucky to have a couple of different combinations to play with in the centre. That's definitely true. Catherine Beechenor says, I'm cooking and listening.
Okay. What we having, Catherine?
Yeah, that's it. It's like, don't just say that. You got to tell us what you're cooking there. Let's see. James Lewis says, I think Ulster will do something significant in next season, 2021. I think that's very true. I think they're actually going very well in this particular season. However they played last Saturday, I wouldn't rule them out for this. I mean, they definitely have performances in them. They definitely have the players, and if they go up and get in a good show, and there's nothing to stop them, I'd say,
Actually, Ulster have a really, really good recent record against Edinburgh as well. Really struggled against us, but I'm going to put a complete stimmy on this now, aren't I, by saying it? But I watched the game we played them last season away, and I mean, Ulster blew them off the park that day. It was one of the best performances I think Ulster had. Really, really good. So, but they're going to have to repeat that if they're going to beat Edinburgh this time, because Edinburgh are a better side as well.
Definitely. And just to get the we got the word in on what Catherine was cooking there. It's bacon and cabbage with butternut squash chips. So we're all good there. Sounds good. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to Munster v Connacht. So guys, so start with you, Jeff. How do you see that going?
I think because of it's a must-win for Munster that. Like, I think they'll tip it now. I'd probably back Munster to win any game. It really doesn't matter who they're playing. Be it blind loyalty or just be it love of, where you grew up. But I do think we'll tip it at the weekend. And like yourself, I'd probably put the blinkers now on that as well. But I don't know. I think we'd probably go with pretty much the same squad maybe that we finished up with, more or less. Like, I think Lockman will start. If Cronin can start, he probably will. But Scannell, John Ryan will probably start. The second row, Tyke Byrne will be back in, I reckon, to go alongside Holland. That back row was just unbelievable. Of CJ, Tommy, and O'Mahony. So I think that they'll start again. I don't know if Jack O'Donoghue will be. Is he? I don't know why he was missing the last day. I don't know, was he injured or was he just not in the squad? But even if he's in the 23, like, he's an unbelievable player as well. Like, I think Murray will start again alongside JJ, who's having probably the best year of rugby I've ever seen him play. Either pre-Northampton, during Northampton, or since coming back. He's having an unbelievable season. I think we'll probably go with the same centres again, with Scannell on the bench. And the reason I say that is because with maybe the lack of 10s at the moment in a game like we have coming up, Scannell as a kicking option, Scannell can fill the 10 slot easy enough as well. So I'd say probably his versatility is going to go against him, I'd say, this weekend more than anything, because that'll pin him to 2 spots. And the back three, then I don't think he can drop any of the back three, especially Conway, which I actually, just to go back to last weekend, I thought that Conway Lowe battle was unbelievable. Like, all the talk of Lowe becoming Irish qualified, like, he's brilliant, but like Andrew Conway is unbelievable as well. You're going to drop Keith Thurs, you're going to drop Larmer, you're going to drop or even Porch, and had a great game as well for Connacht, So sorry, I digress there a little bit, but it'll be a very strong team. I'd probably be worried in terms of prop depth, maybe if Cronin doesn't come through, or maybe second row depth as well. Well, you'll have Fineen Wycherley there as well, I suppose, as well. He'll probably take a bench spot too. So it's I think we'll probably come out on top. Well, I believe that, whether it'll, I'll always believe that, but I think it'll be an unbelievable game, because I mean, you've so many new guys for Connacht as well, and I don't just mean from Munster. Like, I know we mentioned Sammy Arnold earlier, but like, I mean, you have so many new guys. Ulster did a lot of shopping there over the break, so they'll have an awful lot of guys wanting to put hands up as well for spots next year, because like, their season's effectively over now. Like, when their season, they'll be playing again in a few weeks, but like, this season for them is effectively over. So why wouldn't you put out guys to get introduced to the system and stuff like that? So I think, as well as Munster putting out a very strong team, I think you'll have guys playing for Connacht who maybe aren't used to combinations yet, or there might be that bit of patchiness too. Now, Pádraig probably has a big issue with that, but
I actually think Connacht could be very dangerous next week, and if
Connacht are always dangerous.
Munster have got to take this game very, very seriously. Because believe me, they're out to spoil the party, and they played this. I mean, their systems are in place. They're obviously up to speed, and I know what you're saying about maybe not used to, but it could just be easily the case that those players are totally familiar with the system and can just come in and do what they did last week again. In which case, they will be dangerous. So Munster have got to take this very seriously, and of course they will. I mean, we know they will.
You agree with that, Pádraig?
Yeah, like we're gonna have a different 15 to last week. There's no question about it. You're gonna have Paddy McAllister, who is an incredible scrummager, coming back in, more than likely starting. Quinn Rue coming back in, more than likely starting. Killian Gallagher fighting for a spot. Back row, all change. Conor Oliver getting his start against Munster. Caelan Blade wanted to show, Marmion was good last week. I'm still in the hunt for that Ireland jersey. I'm still in the hunt for this starting number 9 jersey. Conor Fitzgerald going, remember that good start of the season I had last year? I'm coming back for that again. Sammy Arnold, Peter Robb. Like, you're going to have a set of partnership that might not know each other, but they've been training with each other. And
that's a bruise and centre partnership.
Yeah, that's a big set of partnership. Yeah. And they're the type of guys that can give you go forward ball when you have a light back row, which we more than likely will have next week on the weekend. It's going to be a really, really interesting game because, let's be perfectly honest, there's a lot of guys there who left Munster because of lack of game time, who would only love to rain on Munster's parade and make sure they don't even get the losing bonus point they need this weekend. Like, and it's not out of badness. It's just, this is what you're missing. I've just done this to you, and I want an Ireland jersey, and you're not that you're stopping me, but I'm going to do it on my own. And they have so much to prove. And like I said earlier on, these guys have a 5-week break. If you have a bad game this weekend, the guy who played well last week is starting ahead of you straight away. There's a big mental side to this. Andy Friend's got it pitched just right. He knows that he can build a good competition in the squad of this game by incentivizing guys going, look, you trained really hard for 6 weeks. You trained really hard over lockdown. Here's your opportunity. I'm not having a first team and whatever, a second team, because there was a lot. That wasn't what you call a full strength Connacht team last week. Those changes, a full back three that had never played with each other before. Like, that's not exactly what you call full strength. And he's given guys opportunities to prove, I am worth being on that pitch for you. And he's rewarding hard work over lockdown, because guys have come back fit and firing, and to not let them play would almost be cruel. So he's given guys that opportunity to work hard, to have worked hard, to go and play harder.
That's a brilliant point. And if you look at Sammy Arnold, like, he's going to be looking at the likes of Bundyaki and be like, right, you had that game, I lifted. And Caelan Blade, like, that battle him and Marmion were having last season, that's just carried over. Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Yeah, and especially your last point of whoever plays well last, it does stick in the memory a little bit. It sticks to the cross. So yeah, that'll be, and that's a wonderful incentive to have, isn't it? Heading up to a break. Yeah.
And like you say,
and you're looking at the pack going, especially the guys that Connacht will start going, well, Snyman's not there now. That's their big, especially in the front five for Munster, the big ball carrying dangers aren't there, like in Kilcoyne and Snyman. The Connacht guys were like, we're going to prove something in that. Like, there's lots of, if you go along the 15 of the little mini battles that you'll see, it's actually a far more interesting game than people will give this credit for.
I think one quality guy you have is that he's going to be unbelievable as Conor Oliver. Like, the more game time he gets, he just loves playing. So, like, the more game time he gets for Connacht, the harder it is going to be to take him off the starting side. Like, he's such a good footballer. Like,
watching the game last week, though, the Ulster Connacht game, I have a funny feeling Connacht are not going to mess about in the set piece, if I'm honest with you, because even though there are a couple of players missing, the Munster still a major pack they're going to have. They're going to get that ball out to the backs, because I think that's where they'll do the most damage. I mean, the support play last week and the moves they pulled to open up defences and take it was impressive, really, really good. They're dangerous in attack, those backs now, more so than before. Somebody said earlier on there about Ulster are going to do things next year. I see a big improvement in Connacht next season as well. I think all 4 provinces are looking better for next season. To be honest, look at all 4 of them; they all look in better shape for next season. All of them. But I have a funny feeling they'll do the set pieces quickly. Obviously, the new ruck laws help smaller packs as well, because they're not going to allow, as Jeff said, people to come in and let 2 people whack before they blows the whistle. And I agree with that as well. By the way, it's a senseless thing, and I'm glad they've changed that. I think Connacht's danger is out the backs. The backs of that centre partnership, Blade. You're going to have Sammy Arnold. Do you think Porsche will play again this weekend, or
like Tiernan's back still there at 15? Like there's guys who want Ireland caps still there and still vying for position. So like Tiernan's got to prove that he's still the number 115.
I think that'll be the game of the weekend of the 2 InterPros, without a doubt, because there's something hanging on it for Munster. They've got to win it to ensure they get through. And Connacht will try and spoil the party for the reasons Padraig has said. Players trying to put their hands on.
And just on top of all of that, I mean, you've not just got a 5-week break. You have a season, the next season coming up, and a European campaign as well to play for. So there's loads coming down the line. I mean, we're not gonna. There's no mid-season now. It's gonna be like boom, finish, start again, and then we're straight back into it. And all 4 provinces involved. So there's definitely a lot to play for. But listen, lads, that was a great chat. We're coming up to the last 10 minutes now. I see some questions there. Darren Everett has asked, what are your thoughts on Edinburgh against Glasgow? And maybe what we can finish on is, I'll just throw it around to you, is talk about the league as a whole now. There's been a lot of changes, a lot of news during the week about that the South African teams are going to drop out, and just how you feel the league is setting up now with how the other teams are doing and how you think it could go going forwards. We'll start with you, maybe, Jeff.
Well, I think going back to the Pro 12 with the lack of the 2 South African teams, which is a real pity. Like, if you look at the start Cheetahs had last season, they were unbelievable, especially at home. And you look at that game actually they had against Connacht, Porrick, where I think Connacht just nudged it at the very end when G up for the scrum or something under the post or something. You were 4 points down or something like that. Like, that's the kind of stuff the Cheetahs offer the league. And I know the Kings maybe aren't as strong as the Cheetahs, and that's kind of being a bit kind, but like they still offer some lovely tries and some lovely running rugby at the same time. And let's be honest, from a fan point of view, if you have the means to go over to South Africa for that double header, that's well, I know COVID probably could pay to that as well, actually, but little things like that. I think we'll probably go back to a single conference, will we? Kind of like the League of Gold, maybe.
12, I'd say so, yeah.
But I did the math. If they'd actually stuck to the 6-team conference system, they'd reduce the amount of games in the league, and which would help for player welfare across the season with fitting so many games in and not clashing with the Six Nations as much. So 18 games instead of 22. There's 4 weekends now freed up. Yeah,
there's what is a long year for these guys.
Yeah.
There would be an argument for keeping it because I've no doubt they're going to expand again in the future. They're looking at America. They're looking possibly. They're talking about more other South Africans coming in maybe down the line, and they haven't totally ruled out South Africans being involved next season. I read something about letting them catch up after the new year. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I suppose that's for financial reasons as well, because the money that the SARU brings to the table. But there's a lot of different ways it can go. What do you make of it all, Nigel?
South Africa need to make a decision on what they want to do. There's a lot of disarray in the Southern Hemisphere. They seem to want to push the South Africans out. If that happens, my belief is those 2 teams won't get back in the league, and the other 4 will come north. It's just as likely they'll all make up, go back to Super Rugby, and they may come in. But whatever happens, that has to be decided soon, because you can't have a feet in both camp and then say, I don't really know which way I want to go. The time is now to make a decision. You're either in the Super Rugby or you're in the Pro 14. Because the Pro 14 can then look at options, which could be, as you say, an American side in, a Georgian franchise, perhaps, based on something like the Jaguares. We've got to look at options for growing our league, and we can't do that when we're in a limbo with South Africa. We just can't do that. Really feel sorry for the Cheetahs, because, as the guys have said, and Jeff was explaining, the style of rugby they play is fantastic. Better. They were getting better. Their away form needs to improve, but they're almost unbeatable at home because where they play, I suppose, as well. But their style of rugby is lovely. They're going to feel very hard done by. And actually, I read a piece today that UNPR's given out big time to the South African rugby, open and honest about what they're doing, which suggests to me those teams and players don't feel they are. Because in South Africa, the press is reporting that they think they're going to pull those two teams, and either there'll be no South African involvement or the other four will come up, and that's why they're being pulled aside by that option. But that needs to be decided, I think, very quickly. All right, and I mean, not another 6 or 8 months down the line. That needs to be decided in the next few months so that all the leagues can plan going forward. You know, but the Pro 12, it will survive. It will go forward. Probably, as you say, go back to a single league, a single home and away games. Will they go for semi-finals and stuff? They may or may not. I mean, I liked it when the team who ended with it, with Leinster would walk with it this season, but they'd done the most. And then all of a sudden you're having these playoffs and knockouts, and somebody can come from nowhere and win the bloody thing, with a couple of games, But okay, I get it. It's a spectacle. It's extra games. It's revenue.
I have no problem with a knockout system. I have no problem with a knockout system, Charles. I don't know what you're on about.
Yeah, why is that now?
It's a bit of a mess at the minute, but I think it all hinges on South Africa making the decision on what they're going to do. And I think at the minute they're still waiting to see if there's something down south. That doesn't seem to be there at the minute. The other nations seem to go they're going, and I'd welcome those teams to the Pro 14. They're great franchises. I think the experiment has worked, particularly with the Cheetahs, so we know that will work. But it's got to be done soon, because then we need to look at that, because there's other teams like Georgia, like the Americans, are thinking, can we crack at something like this? And they're not getting a chance at the minute.
Yeah,
so
I feel for the fans. Like, I think at the end of the day, like, once again, look at the jersey. I know I've been in that position. We've been in that position of saying your club's not good enough or your club's hamstringing us. Like, feel for the fans right now that their clubs are being told you're not worth anything to anyone. And the second we get a chance, we're going to put those other 4 clubs in your place. Like, there's guys who spend their hard-earned cash following teams around and have been told, what you support isn't worth it to anyone else. Like, I think that's also kind of forgotten. And I've always said this: Kings were a defense coach and a mental skills coach away from being a decent team. That's all it was. They had the players. It just
if you're looking at what Kings, like, if you're just talking about like how much they won, I mean, you could talk about Zebra in the exact same fashion. You know what I mean? Like, it's.
Well, if you set me up with all the equipment and all the files and the plays from the last couple of years, I could do a YouTube clip that could make you think they were champions. I mean, the Southern Kings, they scored some amazing tries. Of course, you could do that with anybody, I suppose, but they had some really good YouTube tries, and they were in a lot of matches, and but it's just over the course of a season, they just never really fit in, like,
Come a long way. I remember watching them playing an away game in Glasgow in the first season they joined, and I think every season in the year appeared on the pitch that night, and it was absolutely hammering it down. Then there was hailstones, there was sheets of rain, and you just looked at the faces of the Kings players, and it literally was a case of, what the hell have we done? Definitely. So they're more used to it now. Totally agree with Baldrick. They're a defense coach and a mental skills coach off being a decent side, because going forward they're exciting. But by God, they leak tries, don't they? I mean, they
do. Definitely. Well, listen, guys, that was a great chat. Really enjoyed that. Thanks again to you all for coming in, to Nigel, Pádraig, and Jeff. We're gonna just a few more comments to finish up on there. We've got Gregor Galway saying the game should be great this weekend, just like there was last weekend. Definitely. Dermot O'Rourke on YouTube says, great show, guys. Looking forward to all upcoming games this weekend. I'll read any comment that says great show, guys. I'll read it out, no problem. Keep them coming. That's all good. And we're going to wrap it up there. And just to show that three blokes have another match watch. I did one with for the Munster game last week and really enjoyed it. Just sitting there watching the game and chatting while I was doing it. Sure, when I'm sitting at home anyway, I'm talking to myself anyway. So you might as well do it with people with other people watching you. Once you keep it clean. But Three Blokes is doing one for the Dragons against Scarlets match on Saturday, so that should be good. They could be doing the Leinster Ulster instead, but we'll keep an eye on that and see how it goes. Just keep an eye on the Three Blokes and Bod Facebook page for that. So anyway, listen, we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks all for coming on. Thanks everyone for watching and giving the comments. And we'll hope to see you all again now soon, talking about more big Interpro matches. Thanks, lads.
All right, thanks.
Thanks very much. Good luck. Good evening.
See you guys.